may not be able to do much about the weather, but we do need a better plan for putting out a burning city than waiting for rain.
Bill Maher, this one is personal. His new rule segment that he does at the end of the show is classic. It's unbelievable. When you see people do 5 to 8 to 10-minute segments, they don't get better than this. There's no one who does in this format segments better than Bill Maher on Real Time with Bill Maher. Nobody does segments like this, fire, better than him. And they're often base. His writers get involved, but it doesn't matter. If it was bad, Bill Maher would get the blame. I'm going to let this one go for about 5 minutes or so. This one is straight fire. I'll see you on the back end of this, and then we'll talk about the takeaway. Let's go, Bill Maher on Real Time with Bill Maher, just spreading the heat to his own party.
America is so partisan now that even when there's a disaster of any kind, so many people choose to defend their own team, even over death. A lot of Democrats in this one-party state this week went right to, don't blame politicians, you can't do anything about the wind, which is exactly half true, the wind part. Yes, fire is a tough fight out here, and yes, global warming absolutely makes it worse. But that's largely out of our control. What are we going to do, pass a ballot measure to make sure Chinese stop burning coal? It's also, yes, undeniably true that LA is built in a stupid place to build a city. But when it's not on fire, it's really quite lovely. And it's my home. And stupid as its origin may be, it's not going anywhere. Axios' story on how getting the water out of the hydrants in Pacific Palisades was more complicated than it seems. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's very complicated. That's why I pay 13% of my income in this state every year to people who I assumed were working on things like this. When asked why so many of the hydrants in the Palisades ran out of water, Governor Newsom said the local folks are trying to figure that out. Yeah, you got to do that before the fire. At least in the Palisades, the hydrants were still there. 300 other ones around the city are just gone, stolen for parts. One of the 3 reservoirs for the Palisades was offline at the one time of year when it was most needed. LA's Mayor Karen Bass, the Nero of American politics, was fiddling in Ghana while the city burned and later placed the blame on 8 months of negligible rain and winds that have not been seen in LA in at least 14 years. Yeah, that's not that long a time. Maybe look in the history books to see how our ancestors handled it back in 2011. The mayor said about cuts to the fire department's budget, there were no reductions that were made that would have impacted the situation. The fire chief here had a slightly different take. She said, we are screaming to be properly funded. And yes, the budget was cut, and it did impact our ability to provide service. And by the looks of all the fire engines in the boneyard out of service because we didn't fix them, she's right. Exposed power lines keep causing fires and keep not getting buried underground because it's expensive. I've heard people say, do you want to pay more taxes to fund this? No. I want you to use the exorbitant taxes you already collect to prioritize it. The power lines that cut through Topanga weren't upgraded because it endangered an herb, the milk vetch, which sounds like something they serve at Passover. I mean, talk about not seeing the forest for the trees. You know what the absolute worst thing for the environment is? Wildfires. A 22 study found that the smoke from just the 2 in 2020 wiped out 18 years of carbon reduction in the state, which means we suffered the pain of driving those early model Priuses for nothing.
Whoa.
California is the place that spends money and gets nothing, which is why you may have noticed when the fires broke out, no one escaped by high-speed rail.
Oh.
We have the highest marginal tax rate in America, higher than almost all other states, and soon Greenland.
Had to get a Trump joke in there. Had to get a Trump joke in there.
For that? Breadsticks? Because it clearly doesn't cover fire. That's government's job. Protect us from crime, violence, theft, fire. I'm not saying...
Ooh, Bill Maher annihilates the woke. Bill Maher doesn't want anything to do with the woke. He had to get a Trump joke in there, but this segment, this is one of his best. And you know why? My takeaway from this is because it's personal. That's why. That's why Bill all of a sudden starts talking about, no, these EVs that we're supposed. He believes in the change that we talk about with the weather. He believes in that. And even he says, well, we drove these ugly Priuses. That's the dumbest take ever. If you think you drove a Prius to help the weather, you need help. But that's what they did. And Bill Maher is saying, you didn't prevent this. You didn't do enough prevention for this fire in LA. Now I'm questioning everything. I'm questioning the carpet and the people who lick the carpets. I'm questioning the people in charge. I'm questioning Karen Bass. I'm questioning Gavin Newsom, even though he didn't name him by name here. I'm questioning everything about you guys. I'm questioning the taxes. I'm questioning the speed rail. I'm questioning your ability to govern. And this is a fearless segment. Why is it a fearless segment? I'm going to tell you why. It's because Bill Maher finally discovered nationalism. You heard how he started out this segment. Remember, he started out this segment talking about
Finally, new rule,
talking about how this is home. Oh, this is home. We're going to listen to Bill Maher talk about how this is home, and that's why his segment is so on point here. It's personal.
Of any kind. So many people choose to defend their own team, even over death. A lot of Democrats in this one-party state this week went right to, don't blame politicians.
And to be fair, Bill Maher calls himself an independent. I think it's obvious he's a Democrat, but let's continue on.
Can't do anything about the wind, which is exactly half true. The wind part. Yes, fire is a tough fight out here. And yes, global warming absolutely makes it worse.
See, he acknowledges the weather, but then the whole rest of the segment annihilates those who did not prepare. Because Bill Maher has some logic in him. His logic is, wait a second, even if I do believe in this weather thing that I have to give the government taxes to somehow fix, how do we fix it in China? He had that taken here too.
But that's largely out of our control. What are we going to do? Pass a ballot measure to make sure Chinese stop burning coal?
Oh, so now we're starting to question you. We're starting to see the emperor has no clothes.
It's also, yes, undeniably true that LA is built in a stupid place to build a city.
A lot of places are. Florida's swampland, New Orleans, Louisiana. People live in the mountains. People live in the desert. People live in flood zones, and people live in the cold. Minnesota, upper Minnesota's cold as hell up there. And there's always different reasons why. And that's what he's saying. Yeah, we know we live in basically a dry climate. Fires are a problem, but that's not an excuse for your woke behind to sell me on this type of rainbow flag person. This type of initiative is what we need to focus on when you don't have water in your fire hydrants.
But when it's not on fire, it's really quite lovely. And it's my home.
That's why Bill Maher was based here. You let me know.
The next clip is ready below. Welcome to After Show Carnage.